Hello everyone, and welcome to another 4D Systems video. In this example project, I'll be taking you through the full process of building this car dashboard using a Gen 4 ulcd 70DT display. I'll be taking you through all the steps, including showing you the Photoshop file, programming in Workshop 4, and I'll briefly show you how I made the housing for the display to sit in my car as well. Let's get started. Okay, first off, I'll start by just showing you the project file and how this project was designed. Something that's really important to keep in mind when designing the UI to be programmed in Workshop 4 for your 4D systems display is that the graphic needs to be saved in layers. This is so we can maintain control over everything easily. For example, if I want to make this mobile graphic a user button so it takes me to a new page, I'll have to save it separately to the other graphics so that way I can program it as its own button. I don't want everything here to be linked or exported all as one graphic because then I won't have control over all the individual assets. So let's quickly turn off all the layers and I'll show you the background. When you are building your background, you only want this to be the graphics that are going to remain static within your program. That means things that aren't moving and don't need to be pressed. In this case, that would be the car and this gradient going across the screen. The reason for this is if I just go ahead and lock this background folder in Photoshop really quickly, you'll see that I can no longer move it. In Workshop 4, importing an image as the background makes it behave in the same way, essentially locking it so it is not affected by anything else on the screen and always remains the bottommost layer of your program. That is the background done. Let's quickly go through these icons now. For these, they will be flickering through an on and off state. The blue that is currently being displayed is the on state, and if I switch these, you'll see that the gray is the off state. I'll be animating between these two states to give a flashing or flickering effect on these buttons. Pretty simple. Just two variants for each of these icons, and once again they will all be exported separately. So I will have one on and one off state for each of these buttons. Finally are these smaller graphics that are surrounding the perimeter of the screen. These are essentially the same, they just have an on and off state, and I'll be switching between those two states. So again, I've got blue for on and white for off. And that is pretty much it for the design of this UI. I've now gone ahead and exported all of these graphics. This is what they look like, just so you can see how I've saved all the files, and now we can go ahead and start programming in Workshop 4. To create this project with the pulsing animations, it's actually extremely simple. To start, I'm going to create a new project in Workshop 4. I'll filter to Diablo Gen 4 and choose my display, which is a Gen 4 ulcd 70DT, the very last one down here. I'll then select next and choose the ViSi environment. The first thing I'm going to do is import our background graphics. To do that, I'm going to check that the object selected is Form 1, and then I'm going to come down here in the Properties menu and choose the Image option. I'm then going to select and import my background image from the folder I created with all of the graphic files, and it'll pop up here in this image and video converter window. It's scaled properly, so I'll just press OK, and then I'll come down and change this background type option to image. Now my imported image will show up as the background, and as mentioned before, it will be locked onto the form so it is not interfered with by anything else that we build on top of it. Now that that's done, I'm going to start building the rest of the display. To start, I'm going to do the 8 icons that fill up the main portion of the screen. To do this, I'm going to go to the Widgets menu, select the System Media tab, and drag in a User Images object. Now that this is on our form, you'll notice it's blank. That's because we have to import our images in order for them to show up. I'm going to import both the on and off state of the first icon, which is the phone, And you'll see here, if I flick between them, that they're both here. And I want to make sure that the on graphic is on top, as I want it to start with the on state. I'll then press OK and our icon will be here on the screen. To resize this, we have two options. We either set the stretch option here to yes, and then we can drag it as we like, or we can use the height and width settings. I'm going to use the numerical options just to make sure the ratio remains the same. And that's it for importing these icons. If I want these to be buttons with an on and off state, I can also use the animated buttons, or if I don't really mind them being static, I can just use a user button widget. For the sake of this example, I'm just going to use the user images to show you how to animate the graphics. So now I basically have to repeat that process for all of the other graphics on the screen. I'll show you one more time. We just add in a user images widget, import our images, and that's it. I will be adding code later in order to animate these. So I have all of those pulled up now. Even for the smaller graphics, I'm just going to do the same thing. User images, import photos, and then they are ready to be coded. Moving on to the code of this program, it is relatively simple. I'll give you a brief rundown of what is going on while I type it all out. The overview of this 4D GL is that in this code, we are doing all of our basic setup, such as loading graphics, booting and mounting the SD card, and then we are triggering a loop that is toggling our user images between frames 1 and 0 every 500 milliseconds. This is to create some simple 2-frame blinking animations. So I'm showing the base form, which is our background image, using image show, and the main app is the loop here, where we are jumping between the 2 frames. I am essentially repeating this loop for all of the user image widgets that I would like for this blinking animation to be applied to. That's it for the code. It's really simple to make these types of animations using user images. Because I set up both of the Photoshop and Workshop 4 projects in the most efficient way possible, it makes the coding really easy to do. The final part of this project is moving on to the modeling of the housing. This process wasn't too hard. I just had to get some measurements from my car's dashboard and model the housing based off of that. My dash has this weird sort of angle going along the top, which made it a little bit trickier than it otherwise would have been, but for the most part it was fine. I then downloaded the step file for the Gen 4 ulcd 70DT from the 4D Systems website. I imported it into my CAD software and projected and offset the edges based on my tolerances, so that way I could get the perfect outline and cutout for the display. I personally find this much easier than having to manually redraw the perimeter cutout. From there I added a few extra things like the radius and magnet cutout so the face is removable. I did a test print of the top section just to make sure it fit nicely onto my dash. And after I was happy with it, I just had to put it in my slicing program and send off the model to print. Then I assembled everything and the car dashboard was ready to go. That is this project complete. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was helpful. If you would like to check out the Gen 4 ulcd series used in this tutorial, please visit 4dsystems.com.au. If you have any other questions, please visit the 4D Systems Resource Center and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.